What would you do if you found out your new neighbor was a former FBI agent? Would you call the cops on them? That's what one man did. And then he was shocked when they told him why the agent had moved in next door. Welcome to my channel. And today, let's find out why a man called the cops on his new neighbor. The man had been living in the same apartment complex for 5 years. It was a quiet place. There were no problems until suddenly there was a commotion in one of the apartments upstairs. The man heard yelling, lots of it, coming from the apartment above him. After a while, the noise stopped, so he assumed everything was fine. But the next day, he noticed a moving truck outside the apartment. The man peeked out of his window and saw 2 men carrying boxes inside. They even helped each other. They seemed nice enough. One evening, the man couldn't take it anymore. He had had enough of the noise coming from above him. The man decided to call the cops. The police arrived. The man pointed to the apartment above him and told them about all the commotion. To be honest, the cops were surprised too. Apparently, they had received several complaints about that apartment. However, the cops said that since everything seemed quiet now, they could do nothing about it. So they left. Over time, things calmed down, so the man assumed the noisy neighbors had finally moved out. However, one afternoon, he heard chains dragging metal moans. He knew that sound anywhere. Chains dragging metal moans, the sound of pure evil. He looked out of the window and saw the neighbor carrying in a coffin. The man immediately called the cops again. They arrived. One of them knocked on the door and asked if everything was okay. A woman opened the door and said she was fine. The cop wasn't convinced. He wanted to search the apartment, but the woman refused to let him in. She said she didn't have anything to hide. The cop didn't buy it, but he had no choice. He had to let her go, so he left. That night, the man couldn't sleep. All sorts of thoughts ran through his head. Why did she have a coffin? What was she hiding? Who was she? The man needed answers. However, he never got them. One day, he decided to take matters into his own hands. He went to the city hall and pulled up the residence file. He was shocked by what he found. His neighbor was a former FBI agent. She had moved into the apartment under a false identity, and the coffin she had brought in was for her late husband. She had retired from the FBI 20 years ago and now lived alone in the apartment with the memory of her deceased husband. The man felt horrible after learning the truth. He had judged her unfairly and even called the cops on her twice. Ashamed, he apologized to the woman. He admitted he had been wrong. She accepted his apology, and they became friends. Every day, the man regrets what he did. He knows he was wrong and hopes she can forgive him. The next story is sad. A married couple was at a beach. The wife suddenly took off her wedding ring and threw it into the sea. The husband couldn't believe it. He tried to grab the ring, but it was too late. The waves had already taken it. The man was shocked. He asked his wife why she had done it, but she just kept walking. When they got home, the husband still hadn't recovered from the shock. He sat on the couch thinking about what to do. He loved his wife very much and didn't want to lose her. Suddenly, he had an idea. He got on the phone and dialed a number. Then he went to the bathroom and stayed there for about an hour. When he came out, his wife was gone. He had hired a private investigator to follow her. He wanted to know where she had thrown the ring into the sea so he could get it back. But he had another motive. He wanted to know if she was having an affair. A few days later, the results were in. According to the private investigator, the ring had been thrown into the sea near a hotel. The husband immediately drove to the coast and began searching the shore. A few hours later, he found the ring. It was scratched, but still wearable. Overjoyed, the husband took the ring home and waited for his wife. When she came home, he showed her the ring and asked if she still wanted it. She nodded, put it on, and hugged her husband. She explained she had thrown the ring into the sea because she wanted to be free of their marriage, but she changed her mind. The husband was overjoyed. He had saved his marriage. But behind the scenes, he couldn't shake off a feeling that something wasn't right. Why had she suddenly wanted a divorce? What had happened? One night, the husband couldn't take it anymore. He got on the phone and dialed a number. He called the private investigator and asked him to look into his wife's past. The PI had only one question. What exactly does Mrs. X look like? The husband described his wife in detail. The PI promised to look into it and hung up. A few days later, the PI came to the man's house. The two men sat down. The PI took a sip of coffee and said, "Mr. X, your wife isn't who she says she is." The husband was shocked. "What do you mean?" he asked. "I'm sorry," the PI replied, "but your wife is wanted for a series of bank robberies across the country. I think she used you to get close to one of the banks on your street." The husband was shocked. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. At that moment, he understood why she had wanted a divorce. She probably wanted to start a new life elsewhere. The husband felt betrayed. He had married a dangerous criminal. He immediately called the cops and reported his wife. She was arrested and sentenced to 20 years in prison. The man was left alone. He missed his wife, but he knew she deserved what was coming to her. In our final story today, a man desperately wanted a child, but his wife didn't. The man was ready to do anything to change her mind, so he did the unthinkable. A married couple was planning their future. They wanted to decide whether to have children or not. The wife didn't want any kids, but her husband did. He wanted a baby so badly that he was ready to do anything to convince his wife. One day, the man found a way. He went to a fertility clinic and secretly collected his wife's DNA without telling her. When the results were in, he learned that she could have children. However, she wouldn't agree to it. The man didn't care. He wanted a baby so badly that he was ready to do anything. One day, the man told his wife he had a surprise for her. It was a small box. Inside lay a teddy bear. The man told his wife to take the teddy bear home. He said it was a gift for her. The man had recorded a message on the bear. It was a message to his unborn child. He told the teddy bear that he couldn't wait to meet the baby and that he would be the best father in the world. The man's wife was shocked. She realized he had been spying on her all along. She had no idea he had taken her DNA. She didn't say a word. She just stood there crying. The man thought she was crying because she was touched by the gesture. He had no idea she hated him for what he had done. The following week, the woman went to see a doctor. The man was shocked when he found out what she had done. She had an abortion. The woman left the clinic and went straight to the fertility clinic. There she handed over the man's DNA sample and told them to keep it. She didn't want to have a child with him, but maybe someday she would find someone else, and then she would. That's all for today. See you next time.